Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Torah with your host, Rabbi Anibal. It's great to be here with all of you, sharing this virtual classroom. And welcome, Brenda. Welcome, Shelly. Who else is there? Say hello in the chat so I can say hello to you by name. It's allowed to do that. So, welcome, everyone. Oh, my cough is still there. I've been coughing. I went to the doctor and he told me, oh, yeah, you got this virus that is going around. You're going to be coughing from 4 to 6 weeks. Yay. Great news. Anyway, so I guess I have to get used to it. And today we are going to study about Pesach, the Passover. The Passover. And it's time to start preparing because it takes lots of preparation for Pesach. Lots of preparation, more than any other holiday in the calendar. Because of all the cleanup in the house and all the special products that we have to get. And remember, you have to sell the chametz as well. We're going to talk about that, hopefully, this class. That is going to be a big part of the class to talk about the selling of the chametz. Because I noticed that in the later years, less and less people are selling the chametz, and it's a shame. It's a shame that for some people Pesach is only the first 2 nights, the Seder, and then that's it. It's over. It's not over. Pesach lasts for a whole week, so we don't need chametz for a whole week. Come on, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult, and this selling the chametz through the synagogue makes it even more convenient to do it the right way. Yeah, so the menu prep. Okay, yes. Well, in my case, I'm having the 2 seders at the synagogue, so it's easier. So I just pick the menu from our chef, and then I put some order for pickup, so I will have enough brisket and chicken to eat during the week, and then that's it. That's all I need to do. Easy peasy. But it's all the cleaning in the house, and deciding what chametz we're going to eat before the Chag, what chametz we're going to give away, and what chametz is going to be stored and sold during the holidays. So that also takes a big part. And the cleaning of the kitchen and make kosher all the surfaces of the kitchen, that takes a lot of effort as well. Brenda, you say, I hope the second Seder will be streamed. No, the second, not the first, it's going to be streamed. The one that I do with my family, I always stream it. We used to call it the pajama Seder, the PJ Seder, but no, we are going to still do it the same Haggadah, but not PJs. Anymore. Not anymore. We grew up. So we are going to wear decent clothes this time. I didn't want to make my family feel uncomfortable sitting in front of a camera with PJs. And to stream the second Seder, that is a community Seder, is technologically complicated, let's put it that way, because we are going back to the big room. So I don't think it's going to be possible to do that for the second Seder, but it's going to be done for the first one. Yeah. So again, I see the numbers going up on my screen for people connecting. So please say hello in the chat. I want to know who is on the other side. Before we start, we're going to start in less than a minute with this class dedicated to the preparation of Pesach. So for you to have an idea how it's going to work, today we're going to learn specifically about the origins of Pesach. Welcome, Rachel. The origins of Pesach, and also all the things that we have to do before Pesach, okay, including, as I mentioned, a more thorough studying of the selling of the Hametz and the kind of document that I use to sell the Hametz if you want to do it through us. Okay, so I want to make it transparent. What is it that we do in case you want to do it with us? Next week is going to be mostly about the content of the Haggadah, and most likely the third week is going to be also more things about the Haggadah, but mostly related to insights that you can use for your own Seder if you want to have some teaching moments and something like that, some small things that you can use on your end. That is going to be happening the next 2 weeks. So without further delay, let's start with the class for today. And yeah, so Pesach, you have to know that is celebrated on the 15th of Nisan. 15th day of Nisan. So this year specifically is on Saturday, 12th of April, 2025. Okay, and lasts for either 7 days in Israel or 8 days in the diaspora. Diaspora means outside Israel in this context. Now, every time that Pesach starts on a Saturday night is complicated. Okay, complicated. And let's try to understand why. Number one, there is this tradition to fast the day before Pesach. So technically, we should be fasting on Shabbat. And that's a no-no, because Shabbat is already a restriction. You cannot fast on Shabbat. So the rabbis could have moved the fast to the Friday. But because of the Friday is also a day of preparation for Shabbat, and because they're already moving the fast to a different day, so this year the fast is going to be on a Thursday, the Thursday before Pesach. Okay? Which, by the way, is going to be the same day that I'm going to do the ceremony of the selling of the Hametz. Technically, the ceremony of the selling of the Hametz could be done at any time, because it won't become effective until the date that is written in the document, which is the beginning of Pesach, right? Which is at the end of Shabbat. So that's when the selling become effective, and when you cannot touch any Hametz. And the other problem with having Passover starting on Saturday night is, remember, in the morning of the eve of Pesach, so in this case on Saturday, technically we should be burning the Hametz, but we cannot burn it on Shabbat. So we defer that to the Friday morning is when we are going to burn the Hametz, but the nullification formula that we say, yes, that you can do it on Shabbat. So it's getting complicated, and it's going to be the same level of complication every time Pesach starts on Shabbat. Let me give you another thing that it will make it super complicated for this year. What are you going to use on Friday night for the Shabbat dinner? Are you going to use challah? You can't use challah because the house should be already cleaned for Passover. What are you going to eat on Saturday after shul? Right, the seudot, the meals of Shabbat. Are you going to use challah? You can. So there is a controversy for that. There is one opinion of some rabbis that they say, yes, you use very, very tiny little challah, just enough to fulfill with the halachic obligation. And you will have all your house cleaned up for Passover, except one little corner in your kitchen. You're going to cover that little corner with either paper towel or, and I'm not trying to be gross, toilet paper. Okay? And you are going to say the blessing, and you and your family are going to eat the challah there. After you finish that, you're going to close that paper. You're going to squeeze it well, and you're going to flush it through the toilet, because you can't even put it in the garbage can because it stays in your house, and you cannot have it during Pesach. So it's super complicated this year. The all that is a kind of a novel solution, and is you have your entire house clean for Passover, and for Friday night and the Saturday meals, you're going to use egg matzah. Because you cannot eat matzah 24 hours before Pesach. That's why we cannot use real matzah for the kiddush on Friday night, but you can use egg matzah because it's matzah that is not real matzah, because it has egg. So that's what we do at the Sher Zedek. That is our recommendation. You're going to follow, I guess, whatever tradition you have. But if you don't have any tradition, my recommendation is follow the tradition of having egg matzah for the Friday night and the Saturday breakfast or Saturday after kiddush. So you don't break the tradition of not eating matzah before Pesach. Okay? That's in a nutshell. We're going to revisit that when we study the sources for all this. Okay, so remember, Pesach starts 15th of Nisan. This year, the evening of Saturday, the April 12th, 2025. Now, where does Pesach come from? Brenda Grossman, you said Pesach rolls permissible. It could be permissible. Yes. Yes. If it depends how they are made. How they are made. Gluten-free matzah, Shelly, you can eat it. You can eat gluten-free matzah during Pesach, but you cannot say the hamotzi over it, because the gluten-free matzah, at least the one that I saw at the supermarket, they are not coming from grains. They are potato. So you cannot say hamotzi over it. Yeah. Yeah, the rolls with matzah meal, and if it's egg matzah meal and water, yes, you can use it. You can use it. But the tradition is using it's so controversial, all this, but yes. Yes. Okay, so what I wanted to say is, and make it clear, Pesach comes from the Torah. Why do I have to say this? The Pesach comes from the Torah, because not every festival that we celebrate comes from the Torah. For example, Purim is not from the Torah. It's from the Tanakh, from the Bible, but not from the Torah, from the 5 books of Moses. Hanukkah is not from the Torah. It was instituted by the rabbis. So every time we study about a festival, we have to start by figuring out where it's coming from. In this case, Pesach, very clear, is coming from the Torah. Said that, many of the things that we do during Pesach in this day and age, because we don't have the temple anymore, were instituted by the rabbis. Okay? You should be aware of that. But still Pesach comes from the Torah, at least the concept of Pesach. Exodus chapter 12. So let me read it for you so you can and pay attention to everything that I read and see how many things from here you can still notice in the way we celebrate Pesach in this day and age. Okay? Let's see. Pay attention to everything I read. Okay. Adonai, that is one of the names of God, spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, and he said, "You are to begin your calendar with this month." What is this month? The month of Nisan. Okay? Which in biblical language is the first month. In the rabbinic calendar, Nisan is the 7th month, and the first month is Tishrei, the month of Rosh Hashanah. I know it's confusing, but in Judaism, we have at least 2 different calendars. One is called the biblical calendar, where we learn it from here, okay, that the biblical calendar starts with the month of Nisan, which is the month of Pesach, which the Torah doesn't call it the month of Nisan. The Torah call it the first month, okay? 2 calendars. That's the biblical calendar, and rabbinic calendar starts with Tishrei, okay, which is the month where the year changes number. So we are now 5785. Next Tishrei will be 5786, and so forth. Okay, let's continue. You are to begin your calendar with this month, and that was a commandment from God. It will be the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the assembly of Israel and said, on the 10th day of this month, Each man is to take a lamb for his family, one per household. Except that, if the household is too small for a whole lamb, then he and his next door neighbor should share one, dividing it in proportion to the number of people eating it. Your animal must be without defect, a male in its first year, and you may choose it from either the sheep or the goats. How are we doing so far? Do we do this or we don't do it anymore? Use the chat, let me know. I want to stop here. I want to see your answer here. Do we do any of the things that I'm mentioning here in this day and age? Do we? Come on. I don't hear you I can't hear you typing. Not anymore, says Shelly Chochinov. Okay? We don't do it anymore. In fact, this deal of the lamb and thing, we don't, that is for that specific year. But what we are still doing in this day and age is something that we learn from here, that is to invite the next door neighbor to share the meal. So the tradition of inviting people to the Seder, which is coming from here. So that's what I say, pay attention to every detail. Every detail is important. So that part, we still do it. And that's why we go crazy on Pesach, to either invite people over or for us to find another Seder that we can join, because it has biblical roots. Okay? Now you know it. Now, I will continue with verse 6. You are to keep it, the animal, until the 14th day of the month, and then the entire assembly of the community of Israel will slaughter it at dusk. They are to take some of the blood and smear it on the two sides and top of the door frame at the entrance of the house in which they eat it. We don't do it anymore. Okay? According to the rabbis, that was a commandment for that generation only. 8. That night, that night is the night of the Seder now. Which, by the way, they didn't have a Seder back then. That night, they are to eat the meat roasted in the fire. They are to eat it with matzah and maror. Don't eat it raw or boiled, but roasted in the fire with its head, the lower parts of its legs, and its inner organs. Let nothing of it remain till morning. If any of it does remain, burn it up completely. Okay, another stop. Is there anything we do in this day and age from that paragraph? Use the chat. Don't be shy. I want to know. Sounds like Rachel. Sounds like the other plate. Okay. So let me explain what's going on here. The thing that we do is we have the matzah and the maror, right? The unleavened bread and the bitter herbs. That once we have it, exactly as mentioned here in the Torah. Now, it's mentioning that we should eat the sheep or the goat, right? That it has to be roasted in the fire. For that, there are two different traditions. Sephardic Jews, they still eat lamb for Pesach during the Seder. Okay? They have different recipes where they cook the lamb. Ashkenazi Jews, the rabbis decided that we are not to eat lamb on Pesach because the lamb mentioned here was exclusively to be presented as a sacrifice at the temple, and then you can take part of the meat at home and eat it. We don't have the temple anymore, and as part of the mourning process of not having the temple, we distant ourselves from eating the lamb. So we don't have the lamb anymore. And that's why Ashkenazi Jews usually replace the lamb for other types of meat, like chicken, for example. Okay? So, but we still have from there matzah and maror, and who put it there? Let's see. Let me see. Brenda, you said we put a shank bone. Yeah, we put a shank bone on the central plate of the seder as a reminder of the lamb that is mentioned here in the Torah, because the lamb used to be presented as a sacrifice. It used to be called the Paschal lamb of the Pesach lamb, the Pesach sacrifice, Korban Pesach in Hebrew. And this continues. Now, listen to this. And again, pay attention. Tell me what we do. Tell me what we don't do. Here is how you are to eat it. With your belt fastened, your shoes on your feet, your staff in your hand, and you are to eat it hurriedly. It's Adonai's Pesach. Okay? Do we do that? Type it in the chat. For that night, I will pass through the land of Egypt and kill all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both men and animals, and I will execute judgments against all the gods of Egypt. I am Adonai. The blood, the one, remember, we put on the frames, the blood will serve you as a sign marking the houses where you are. When I see the blood, I will pass over. That's why Passover is called Passover. I will pass over you when I strike the land of Egypt. The death blow will not strike you. This will be a day for you to remember and celebrate as a festival to Adonai. From generation to generation, you are to celebrate it by perpetual regulation. Okay? So, from here, we don't do that. The belt fasten, your shoes on your feet, your staff in your hand. Although I was told that there are certain people, not Sephardim, but more, how they call it, the Teimanim, which is sometimes translated as Arab Jews from Yemen, Iran, Iraq, all those areas. There are virtually no Jews there anymore. But they used to have the tradition still to reenact the Exodus, and they will prepare a little bag on a stick and have it next to them, just to try to be as close as possible to the biblical narration. They used to do that, or they still do that. And the other thing that we learn from here is that this is something that Pesach, in general, all the eating of the lamb, is not something just for that generation. It's something that it has to be observed in every generation, either if we are in Israel or if we are not in the land of Israel, in the promised land. Okay? So that's why it make it very clear. This is something that we have to continue from generation to generation as a perpetual regulation. Okay? Now, the other thing that is interesting, and the Torah will give more details about that, is specifically about the matzah and that we have to eat, and specifically about other foods that we are not allowed to eat or to have. Okay, so it's not just enough, and these are discussions that I have with people sometimes during Pesach, that there is a misconception in some families that all you need for Pesach is to have matzah in the house. That's just one of the components. So again, if you eat matzah, you are fulfilling one mitzvah. But if you eat chametz, which are leavened products, you are violating a different mitzvah. Okay? So the two mitzvah are as follows. Let me start with the matzah, even though it's mentioned later in the Torah, but I want to start with this anyway because it's the symbol of the festival. So, Exodus 13:7, it says, matzah is to be eaten throughout the 7 days. Neither chametz nor leavening agents are to be seen with you throughout your territory. Now, let me ask you a question here. Because again, remember, we are trying to pay attention to all these little details. Why does it say here that matzah is not to be eaten throughout the 7 days? what is this deal of 7 days if we just learn that Pesach was one night, was the night of the eating of the lamb? Why now the Torah mentions the 7 days? Any clues? I will give you a minute to think about it. Type it in the chat. I feel like a very stringent teacher putting you through an exam. And so I apologize for that. That's not my intention. Okay? But I just want you to use a critical thinking here. And the Bible is mentioning 7 days. What are these 7 days? If we know that Pesach, even in English, Pesach means Passover. And the Passover was that Passover night when, God passed over the houses of the Israelites. But that was one night, and now the Torah talks about one whole week. Let me tell you why. Because, and this is the confusing part, we are talking about two different holidays. Okay? Hi, Glenn. Welcome to the class. We need to deflate our egos. Yes, but this week that we are talking about here is not Pesach anymore. Pesach started and ended with that night. And you're probably thinking, what is this crazy rabbi saying? I was always told that Pesach is 1 week long. No, it's not. Pesach is one night. What is 1 week long is another festival mentioned in the Torah, and it's called Chag HaMatzot, the festival of the matzah. That because it overlaps with Pesach, it gets confusing. Okay? But if you go, for example, to the Siddur, to the prayer book, you know that whenever we have a festival, during the Midah, during the silent prayer, there is a paragraph that we mention the festival by name. So, when we mention Pesach, we don't say Pesach. Pay attention next time during the service. We don't mention Pesach. We mention Chag HaMatzot. Chag HaMatzot, because Pesach is only one night, and Chag HaMatzot is 1 week long. So in this day and age, Pesach and Chag HaMatzot became synonyms, but they are not. They are two separate holidays, okay? Just remember that. And that's why it says matzah, specifically matzah, nothing about the lamb now, nothing about maror, the bitter herbs, nothing about that. This is the Chag HaMatzot, which is a different festival. So matzah is to be eaten throughout the 7 days. Neither chametz nor leavening agents are to be seen with you throughout your territory. And now Exodus 12:19, it says, during those 7 days, no leaven is to be found in your houses. You see the difference? Before said to be seen, now is to be found. I know it looks the same, but we are paying attention to little details, okay? Seen and found are two different things. Whoever eats food with chametz, okay, so we have a third component. Not seeing, not founding, finding in the sense of owning. So not seen, not own, not eat. Whoever eats food with chametz, it is to be cut off from the community of Israel. That is a punishment mentioned in the Torah called karet, which means a spiritual separation or severance between us and God. So, in other words, if you eat chametz during Pesach, you are compromising your relationship with God. Nothing to do, this cut off doesn't mean that somebody's going to kill you, cut off your head or anything. No. Eating chametz on Pesach, what it does, it separates you from God. And as I always mention, we're trying to build a relationship with God, a trust relationship, a loving relationship. And eating chametz on Pesach, it kind of harms that relationship. Okay? It doesn't matter whether he's a foreigner or a citizen of the land. That means, and this is talking specifically about the times where the people of Israel in biblical times and live in the land of Israel, and the law for the whole land, the law, the constitution, was the Torah. So the Torah said during this week, nobody can have chametz. So it was the thing for the whole land. In this day and age, when that is not the case, even in the land of Israel, we don't live under the rule of Torah. Yeah, right. We have a democracy in Israel, etc. So this restriction applies only to Jewish people. The not eating, owning, seeing chametz. So there's a restriction exclusively for the Jewish people. Okay. So Shelley, you said here, I didn't read what you read. You said, so do we greet people with Chag HaMatzot? No, you see, technically that should be correct. After the Seder, the next day, you should greet people Chag HaMatzot Sameach instead of Chag Pesach Sameach. But we still do that. We still say Chag Pesach Sameach. Brenda, you said, why do Ashkenazi and Sephardic traditions differ so much? And it's funny, I don't know if you can see, Brenda, that after the Ashke, you got 4 stars. And it's because you probably spelled the word Nazi, right? So YouTube will filter that. That's what it is. Why do Ashkenazi and Sephardic tradition differ so much? Because that's the way it is. They develop different traditions. It's different communities that they were influenced by different cultures around them, so they develop different traditions. And then when we go into what we eat for Pesach, it's very notorious. When the Ashkenazi don't eat kitniot, it means not only chametz, but the restriction for Ashkenazi is even more stringent of what the Torah says, right? All the kitniot, that there are other kind of grains, that they are not the forbidden grains, but they will be could be confused with the biblical grains. So the Ashkenazis say we don't eat it, so we don't eat rice, lentils, and other things. And remember, there were some crazy rabbis even trying to forbid quinoa recently. It's mishigas. There is no limit. The Sephardics. The Sephardic don't eat kidneyot. Basically, they do eat kidneyot. Yeah, Sephardic, they do eat kidneyot. Said the Ashkenazi don't eat kidneyot because the beans and rice were transported in the same bags as flour back in the day. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was more also, yeah, a restriction because they wanted to be sure that not only for cross-contamination, but only by mistake. Because you can make pretty good flours from rice, for example, or chickpeas on thick. The flour is could be confused with a regular flour, so that's why another reason why it was forbidden, and it created the category of kidneyot. We're going to see that in a minute. Okay, so beyond the two names that I mentioned, Chag Pesach, right, and then Chag Matzot, we also have 2 more names, Zman Cheruteinu, the time of our freedom, and Chag HaAviv, the spring festival. Okay? So that's the thing that I wanted you to be aware. That is not just 2 names, 4 names for the festival. Chag Pesach, Chag Matzot, Zman Cheruteinu. Zman means time. Cherut means freedom. Okay? Time of our freedom. That because we were free from Egypt, and Chag HaAviv, the spring festival, because of the time of the year where Pesach is celebrated. So be aware of that. Now, let's talk about how we prepare our homes for Pesach. And this is when it starts getting complicated, tedious, and this is when many people give up, because this is really hard to do. Because when the Torah is talking about us removing the chametz, it means completely. And that means even from the surfaces of your house. So if you can, from the pots and pans, and if you cannot do that, there are other ways to deal with that. But you have to do a thorough cleaning of your house. So for example, there are 3 things that you have to do before Pesach to fulfill with the rabbinic instructions. Number 1, bitul chametz. You have to nullify the ownership of chametz. And there was going to be a formula that you have to recite out loud, where you will see in a minute. I will read it. Was you said, all the chametz that I may have, and maybe I missed it. I don't see it. I don't know what it is, but it's null and void. Okay, it's not my fault. I tried, but you still have to do this formula before Pesach. Then you have the mechirat chametz, the sale of the chametz, whatever you were not able to eat or donate or put in the trash before Pesach, all the chametz that you couldn't do that, you have to sell it. The way you do it is because you are not allowed to see it. Also during Pesach, is you have to find one room in your house. Could be a closet, could be a pantry, and you're going to put all the chametz you have in your house there, including pots, pans, cutlery, and all that is contaminated with chametz and cannot be koshered because of the kind of material. You put it there and you lock it during the duration of the festival, okay? And then, once you put it in a room, you have to sign the power of attorney to a rabbi, so the rabbi will sell your chametz on your behalf to a non-Jew. Because as I mentioned before, a non-Jew doesn't have the restriction. A non-Jew can own chametz. So what you do is, number one, then you should not see it, easy. Put it away. You should not own it, that's more complicated. But if you sell it to somebody else, problem solved immediately. And then do not eat it, but that's up to you, to be sure that you don't eat chametz in your house or outside your house during Pesach. And also, to make it clear that you want to dispossess yourself from all chametz, you have one more step instituted by the rabbi that is called the bedikat chametz, which is searching. This is symbolic. This is after you finish cleaning your house. You search and destroy all the leftover of chametz that you find. And when I start destroying, I mean burning by flame. You have to do it. So now, the mechirat chametz, the selling of the chametz, is usually done first, because that you can do it right now. You can do it right now. So what you have to do, and I will show you right now, and then I will put this screen again, right? You can go right here. If you have a phone, you can scan it, and this is going to send you to a website within the Shari Zedek website, where you will find an online form to sell the chametz. It's absolutely free. And then if you put your name there, that means that you're going to make me your shaliach. I will be your delegate to sell the chametz on your behalf. So that is it's going to be a very interesting thing. You have to complete the form, and then you can do it. If you cannot do that, if you cannot scan it, then you can go here. I'm gonna type it in the chat. You can go there to that link where you're gonna have the form that you can complete. It's very easy. If you're in Winnipeg, you can also come by to Shari Zedek and pick up one form from our front office. They will have it there as well. Okay. I will put it back again at the end of the class. So mechirat chametz, the selling of the chametz, is usually performed first. As I said, doesn't matter how far in advance you do this. A Jew who has his own chametz in his possession on Pesach transgresses each and every moment of Pesach on the prohibition of "it shall not be seen and it shall not be found." And it is prohibited to benefit from such chametz forever. So that means that if you forgot to sell your chametz, the chametz that you have in your house during Pesach, then you can never again eat it or use it. You have to give it away. So that is to be a big problem with Jewish owners of distilleries or brewing companies, right? That they have to sell their companies for a week during Pesach. Otherwise, that becomes forbidden forever. All the production and used to be very controversial in some places of Canada and in the United States. So a Jew transgresses forever. Let's continue. Therefore, one who owns large amounts of chametz that he is unable to destroy might sell it to a non-Jew before Pesach. This chametz may be eaten by a Jew after Pesach, because then your chametz is going to be repurchased by me at the end of Pesach, right? After Pesach, the Jew in this context is me. Okay, the Jew should request from the non-Jew that he should sell him back the chametz for such and such an amount of money. So it has to be a profit for the non-Jew to make at the end of the process. That's why it constitutes a sale. Now, the searching of the chametz that I mentioned, what you do is this is done preferably at the beginning with dusk on the evening of the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan, which is the evening before the first Seder. Those years, like this year, in which the first Seder falls on a Saturday night, the Bedikah, the searching, must be conducted on Thursday night, not on Friday, on Thursday night. We should make the search by candlelight or flashlight and search the home from every piece of chametz we can find. It's almost like a CSI project that you have to go around and keep it all together. Before the search, we recite a blessing. Blessed are you, God our Lord, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us concerning the destruction of chametz. Okay, you have to say blessing just to put you in the right mood and to make it clear that it's not just a regular cleaning for the house. You're doing this specifically to fulfill this mitzvah, this commandment. Upon completion of the search, the next step is the bitul, nullification of ownership. There is a formula called kol hamira, which is recited. All chametz or leavening which is in my possession, which I have not seen or have not removed, or whose existence I didn't know about, I am making it null and void. In Hebrew, that is hefker. Hefker is ownerless. Hefker as the dust of the earth. All this could be found in the Haggadah. It's usually at the very beginning. If you get our Haggadah from the Shari Zedek, it is at the beginning of the Haggadah, the whole ceremony of the search and nullification of the chametz, with everything you have to recite. Now, the last step is the burning of the chametz. The following morning, in this case it's the Friday morning, the chametz found the previous night plus the leftover from the breakfast must be burned. This year, the nullification is again pronounced on Saturday morning with the addition, because you burn it on Friday morning, but you don't nullify it yet. Because the nullification has to be done the day before Pesach, right? And this is Saturday. Saturday you cannot burn. So you burn on Friday, but you nullify on Saturday after you finish your breakfast. So as I mentioned before, if you have the tradition of filling little mats on top of paper towel and then you flush it, after you flush it, you recite the nullification. If all you do is egg matzah, you just pronounce the nullification sometimes in the morning. And then Saturday morning, you will say, all my chametz that I do, you will add to the previous formula, all the chametz that I do know about, following by or don't know about in the above formula. So again, it's all in the Haggadah. The only thing that is not in the Haggadah is this explanation that this year we burn on Friday, nullify for the second time on Saturday. This is something that you have to be aware. Now, how do we clean the kitchen? This is always a big nightmare. And the bigger the kitchen, the bigger the nightmare. That's the way it works. And I've seen the way they do it here in the industrial kitchen at the Shari Zedek. Gigantic nightmare. The way they do it, they do a great job with a blowtorch and boiling water. Oi! But they do it really amazing job. Here, our chef and the kitchen staff. So, kashering the kitchen. There are 4 different methods for kashering for Pesach. Number 1, Hagalah, total immersion in boiling water. Number 2, libun, purification by flame using a blowtorch until the surface is heated to a glow. Same effect is achieved by leaving the stove top at maximum heat for 5 minutes and running the self-cleaning cycle on the oven. So you have to just plan it in advance. When you're doing the cleaning, let's say on a Thursday, you're going to do this. You have to clean the surfaces and everything. Some people will kosher for Passover the kitchen way in advance, especially if you have to cook for your Seder and thing. So you have to be careful that if you kosher in advance, then that the chametz is off limits in that kitchen. Okay? So it's almost like you have to start certain aspects of Pesach in advance whenever you kosher your kitchen. Be careful of that. Okay? The next step is irui, and then it's with pouring boiling water over the surfaces using an already kosher for Passover pot. Okay, you have to be careful about this. And then milui veirui is soaking in cold water. That is never used anymore. It's a pain in the neck. It takes multiple days to do it. We don't do it anymore, but I wanted to mention it. So, the general principle of which method you are going to choose is known as kevolo kach polto. As it absorbs, so it sheds. So, for example, a pot should be immersed in boiling water. Why? Because it contains liquids when you use it for cooking. While an oven rack should be koshered by fire, etc. So, the way you're going to do it, if you have an oven that is not a gas oven, it's a ceramic, or it has the coil, that one you're going to put in on high heat for 5 minutes. Okay? Then I believe in this day and age, virtually every oven will have a self-cleaning cycle. Do that, and then you finish the cleaning by removing all the ashes with some kind of disposable wipe or something. But if you have the gas kitchen, then you have to do it with blowtorch. I know it's difficult, right? So, Brenda, you said, can you kosher in advance, cook, and then re-kosher the day ahead? Yeah, some people do that. They will kosher, they'll do all the cooking, and then you still have 2, 3, 4 days before Pesach because you put already all the food in the freezer or something like that. Then yes, you will have to re-kosher if that's something that happened. But you have to kosher before you cook for Passover. That's for sure. Kosher by fire. So yeah, it's and then the pouring boiling water is for your sink. You have to do it on your sink, and you have to do it on all the kitchen surfaces. If that is too difficult for you to do, just cover the surfaces with aluminum foil. That is the same. You can either do it with boiling water, and I know for many people it's complicated because how do you collect all the water that you put on top of your kitchen island? Just cover it with aluminum foil. That works as well. Okay. Now, let's talk from now all the way to the end of the class about the document that I'm going to use. This year, if everything goes well, the non-Jew who is going to buy the chametz from people of Shaare Zedek is the MLA of River Heights. His name is Mike Moroz. Represents the area. He's a very good friend of Shaare Zedek. So he's going to buy all the chametz. It's going to be very interesting. Every year we try to find somebody else to do it. Shelly, you said foil is easy. Yeah, it's the easiest way, just to cover the surface if you cannot kosher it. But yes, for the sink, you have to pour boiling water on all the surfaces after you clean it. You have to scrub it first and then the boiling water. Okay, document sale of chametz. I want to read it for you so you understand where you are signing if you send us your sale of chametz form. Okay? Now, this is the text. I, the undersigned, Rabbi Anibal Mas, have sold to whoever is going to buy it this year, hopefully Mike Moroz, a non-Jew. And this is interesting. Before I start, I have to ask him, hey, are you Jewish? And he has to tell me, no, I'm not. It's a little awkward, but it's required to do that. Okay? from the hour listed below all forms of chametz. And then I have to explain to him, even though he knows I have to explain again. What is chametz? Leaven or food mixes with leaven, prohibited during Passover. And I'm selling you also the all suspected chametz, okay? Whether my own or that of anyone who has authorized me to sell their chametz as detailed in the shtar harsha'ah. That is the form you are signing, okay? It's called the shtar harsha'ah. This day and age, we call that the power of attorney, which has been given to me, whether food, specifically form of grain and flours, baked good, all baked ingredients, or drink, specifically hard drinks such as brandy, whiskey, cognac, and all varieties of liquors, and all forms of candy, chocolate, sweets, okay, all that. The chametz also, I'm also selling, and pay attention to this, and this is fascinating, all the chametz which adheres to utensils in containers or clothing. So what happened is you have, let's say, pots, pans, glassware that you can't kosher it. You cannot sell the elements because once you sell that to a non-Jew, when you buy it back, you have to take it to the mikvah. So because we don't want to do that, what we say is, hey, Mike, I'm not selling you the pots and pans and glass and plates and cutlery. I'm not selling you that. I'm selling you only the chametz that is stuck in there. So if you want it, you can go and get it, right? But I'm not selling the element, but the chametz that is stuck in there, which is very interesting. I only selling him large and small and all animals, right? All animals, large and small cattle, horses, birds, fowl, which feed on chametz. So let's say that you have an animal that you have to feed the animal with chametz. Then you have to sell the animal. If you have an animal that doesn't feed on chametz, let's say you have a dog and a cat, and you can get away with giving meat or milk and other things that they are already kosher for Passover, because remember, you cannot get in your house anything that is not kosher for Passover. So if you have to feed them with chametz, you sell the non-Jew the animal, and then he will give you permission to feed the animals, his animals, with the chametz that he bought. So you can use that chametz to feed an animal, and the chametz is not yours, okay? It's his. Now, I'm also selling the chametz and chametz mixtures, which those who have authorized me in partnership with a non-Jew, whether the chametz mentioned is truly their own or that for which they are responsible, even if responsible only for negligence, whether the responsibility is according to Torah law or civil protocol or by dint of lawlessness. And it sometimes happens, somebody forgot something in your house, or like a box of chocolate or whatever. It's chametz, it's not yours. Stay there, by mistake. But just in case, we sell him that too. Okay? Civil protocol or by dint of lawlessness, whether the chametz is with them in the house, in the attic, in the cellar, or a factory or store, whether on dry land or the waters, whether in wagons, railroads, in ships, in airplanes, your cars, whatever. So you're selling also the chametz that is in your house and in your cars, for example, your offices. All such chametz as listed above, I have sold to the aforementioned buyer in a complete and absolute sale without retaining any rights whatsoever. As regard to the price of the chametz as listed above, I came to an agreement with the buyer that everything will be assessed by 3 experts in assessment, okay, according to current prices. So I don't know how much chametz I'm selling him, because people who give me the forms, you don't list every single item that you have. So I say, okay, so what I'm going to do is whatever you buy, I'm going to have 3 experts that eventually, not now, eventually, they are going to go house by house measuring every chametz out there, and they're going to put a price on it. Okay? Just wait a minute to understand how this works. And in accordance with the assessment, the buyer is obligated to pay the price after measuring such chametz, as it is normally measured or weighing such chametz as is normally weighed. Okay? The assessment, measurements, and weighing will take place after Pesach. After Pesach, may it come upon us with blessing. So he doesn't know how much he's buying because the measuring is going to happen after Pesach, right? So, and because we don't know how much chametz is there, as regards the cost of the purchase, I will receive from the buyer a total security of 20 Canadian dollars. He's going to give me right there in front of the cameras and the witnesses, because we're going to stream this. He's going to give me $20 bill or 2 tens, who knows, $20 bills. And I established the reminder to be in the form of a loan. So basically I say, you know what, you give me $20. You don't have to give me the rest of the money right now because we don't really know how much it is. You can give me the rest after Pesach once we measure all the chametz, which with a date of maturity not to exceed 1 hour into the 23rd day of Nisan in the year 5785, corresponding to the evening of the 20th day of April in the year 2025. So it means right after Pesach is over, after the measure and weighing take place. And I declare unequivocally that I have rented to the aforementioned buyer my house. So not only he's buying all the chametz, he's also leasing all the rooms where the chametz is stored. Okay, so if you put it, for example, in a closet, he is actually leasing, he's renting your closet for the entire week. Okay, for the entire week. So to make that symbolic, I rent him my whole house, and by extension, he is renting each one of your properties, guys, because you gave me the power of attorney. So, rented to the buyer my house located at, I won't give you my address, of course, that is in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, for him to store the utensils and movable goods at is the buyer's pleasure. It's his house for a week. For the sum of 20 Canadian dollars for the 14th day of Nisan in the year, so he was going to give me another $20, right? Another $20 right in front of there. So from the day of Pesach until the 23rd day of Nisan in the year 5785, corresponding to the evening of the 20th day of April, okay, in the year 2025. And by dint of the possession of my property, okay, rented to the buyer, I transfer to the buyer all the goods as mentioned above. All the chametz is yours by extension. And I have also rented to the buyer all the places where the aforementioned chametz substance are for the sum of $20 per room. But I don't know how many rooms are there. Right? I don't know how many rooms you have in your homes and everything. So all what he has to give me at this time is $20. And then after Pesach, we're going to figure out how many rooms, and he has to give me the rest of the money. Okay? So the buyer has the authority to do with the chametz whatever his pleasure, to sell, to give, to rent. And also the buyer has the authority to take home the aforementioned chametz immediately if he wants. Okay? But there is a catch. Everything he takes, he has to pay. Okay? You follow? It's not so easy. Everything he takes, he has to pay the way it's going to be measured at the end of Pesach. But even if the chametz remains wherever it is now, from this time forth, all is within the responsibility of the buyer, and I'm no longer responsible for it, including any unavoidable accidental damages. And the buyer has also agreed to accept the stipulation that if any loss of value occurs with the aforementioned chametz, the sellers will be considered reliable in their account of how the loss of value occurred. But again, this is all after Pesach. And I, from my end, agree that even if the buyer does not pay the entire amount agreed to as regard to the sale price of the Hametz purchase, and for which I have made a loan to the buyer, nevertheless, the purchase of the buyer remains valid. So even though he's not giving me all the money right now, still his. Still his. So the sellers that you, each one of you sending the power of attorney, the sellers listed on Mahar Sha'ah have also authorized me to sell their chametz, which was not in their possession at the time they authorized me to act as their agent in the sale, and have personally guaranteed me that this is their intention. So, for example, let's say you place an order on Amazon, something containing chametz. You forgot about it, and then somebody knocks at your door during Pesach, and it comes with this box of crackers. What do? You don't have to send it back. Say, thank you very much, you can get it because it's not yours. You already sold it. Or somebody comes to your house, a guest or whatever. The person didn't know that it was Pesach and came something as a gift that contains chametz. Don't worry. Thank you very much because it's not yours. It becomes automatically from the buyer. Okay, so this covers all the angles here. Okay, yeah. And should there come into the seller's possession from the day and hour listed below any form of chametz, they hereby sever all connection from that chametz, rendering it ownerless, and they do not wish to have any right or acquisition of such chametz even after it comes into their possession. And these sellers rent to the aforementioned buyer all the places where such chametz is brought in for transport from the hour listed below until the 23rd day of Nisan of this year. And the buyer will acquire this chametz and do with it as he pleases. And we have one a little bit more here. Regarding the containers in when there is chametz, if they are containers which require no tevilah, no mikvah, when purchased from a non-Jew, they are hereby sold to the buyer by dint of the acquisition of the aforementioned property, as they will assess by 3 experts in assessment as stated above. If the containers are the kind of material, right, that require mikvah when purchased from a non-Jew, I do not sell them to the buyer. Rather, I loan them to the buyer until the buyer removes the chametz from them, right? So I have also transferred ownership of all the chametz and the places mentioned to the aforementioned buyer by virtue of the delivery of this bill of sale. Now is in possession of proof of that transfer of ownership. It has also been explicitly stipulated that if there is any error in the names of individual or places as described in the list which I have given to the aforementioned buyer, the sale is not thereby invalidated. So if there is a mistake, you gave me, let's say, your harsha and you misspell your address or the postal code or the phone number is wrong, is still valid. Okay? And also the other thing that I always stipulate with the buyer, and this is orally during the purchase, is that the buyer is still giving you right of access to the places where the chametz is stored in case that you need to get something from there, for example, a medication. You forgot that the medication is there. So then you can still go there because remember, for a week it's not your property anymore. So they're still giving you the right to do that, so you can do it. So it is within the authority of the aforementioned buyer to carry out the sale in accordance with the law of the land in all of its details. The financial consequences which emanate from such actions are the buyer's responsibility. It has also been stipulated with the aforementioned buyer that even if this document is binding only in Jewish law as opposed to civil law, nevertheless, this sale of chametz is valid, and should there occur any disagreement between the aforementioned buyer and the sellers, they agree in advance and obligate themselves to litigate the dispute according to the law of Torah as interpreted by the congregation Sherei Zedek rabbis. Everything herewith stated has been thoroughly prepared in the most binding manner in accordance with the teaching of our sages. May their memory be blessed, and should not be regarded as mere rhetoric or perfunctory legal form. Okay? witness this 12th day of the month of Nisan at the approximate hour of 10 a.m. That's when it's going to be approximately the selling in the year 5785, corresponding to the 10th day of April in the year 2025 here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Okay, so here I leave it again for all of you, the sale of the Hametz, so you can get it there, you can scan it. And so I wanted to explain this because there is always mystery how this is done. So I want to make it clear and transparent to know if you still wanted to go ahead and sell your Hametz with us. We are very thorough the way we do it, and we prepare a very serious document to do the selling of the Hametz. Okay? And I know, 10 minutes after the time, but I had to wrap up this thing. Someone scanned the QR code, the computer is telling me. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope to see you all again next time with the second part of preparing for Passover next week. And again, this class is going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time in case you missed any part of it. Until then, please stay safe, have a wonderful rest of your day, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.